This is Michaela McLean, and you're listening to Beauty by Design. Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for being here. It's time to talk about Gate 54. But before we get into it, of course, I just want to let you know what's happening on the home front. Well, I'm working diligently on a class. My kids are still off school. We had Christmas break very late this year. And so I'm trying to get that all together. I'm hoping to have it ready for public consumption by the new moon in Capricorn, but we'll see. We'll see. You know, it is something that'll be evergreen though, because of what it's about for the purpose, the visioning, the alignment. That is not a one and done. That is a forever thing, And I just really gotten not suddenly, sometimes it's just a realization. You're like, I am so into self study myself. I'm a 4-1, right? That line one loves to do that. And I want to, line four, share that with other people. And I think that's a really powerful way to learn your chart. And so that's where I'm coming from with just things that I have brewing and have had brewing in my mind for quite some time. So I think that is the direction that some things are going to go, where it's just like assisted self study, utilize the library that is the podcast and other things that I have cooking. And yeah, really learn and dive deep on yourself. So that said, watch this space. I will have more information as soon as I've got it all ready and I know, when the go time is. I wanted to have it ready for enough sort of, marination before the Human Design New Year, which is January 22nd when we move into Gate 41. So anyway, like I said, just watch the space. But of course, in the meantime, check out all the free charts that your heart desires at my website, michaelamclean.com. Got the free guide to human design basics. Of course, that's going to take you to the correct 1 hour or a type masterclass for you, where you're going to learn everything: type, strategy, authority, not self signature, deconditioning tips, like literally everything you need to know to get started all in one place. It's something to watch or listen to once or honestly, many times over, revisit periodically. And this is a really great time as you are beginning to understand, or, you know what I mean? Kind of prepare for a new year. I shouldn't say understand, but prepare for a new year, right? Just revisiting, what is my type? Like, am I living in alignment with that? Just strategy and authority first and foremost. So I say get started there. And then, yeah, yoga nidras, of course, one for you that's going to apply to your type and your authority specifically, to listen to as much as you possibly can and bypass the conscious mind. Really let all of that information sink into your cells, just skipping over trying to understand it on the conscious, like the mind level. It's amazing. It's so that stuff is just so magical, like what our minds are capable of doing in that way. So all of that, yeah, I don't know, get yourself started. So everything is available, of course, on my website, MichaelaMcLean.com. Links are in the show notes, Instagram bio at Michaela McLean if you're not following me over there already. And of course, I do encourage you to go follow me, because I share other things there that I don't talk about necessarily on the podcast. Each week, I, of course, put up a post where you get the tangible ways of using what is going on here. So we're going to talk about Gate 54 right now. Well, what essential oils, what crystals, what frequency, what all of these, like, great things that you can be incorporating into your practice at this time. That's where I put. So go check it out. Okay. So moving on. Let's get on to the episode. Of course, your friendly reminder every time. Don't try to understand this at the mental level. Let the sound current, the energy, the frequency of beauty sink deep into your cells like good skincare. Yeah, we're looking at the things. I was marinating on this myself. Of course, I'm a sun in Gate 36, so darkening of the light. I'm going off on a tangent real quick, but it's the shadow. This is what we're really doing here, is very gentle, very subtle, shadow work, really. We're looking at the things that we have or the things that we encounter and how are we using them correctly or incorrectly. I want to preface this. Actually, there's a reason why I'm even saying that, right? And I'm thinking by darkening the light, it's like the obstruction or the occlusion of your inner light, right? When we are living in the shadow. Okay. So why I'm bringing this up right now is that gate 54 is an interesting one for this because and you're going to see as we get into it, we're going to talk about it, but I think it's one, it's just like if you do have it in your chart, you know, to make sure that you're using it correctly, like every single gate, this one just in particular, I have I offended somebody with this one listening to the podcast. This has been like a year ago and it's still like scarred me. So it's like, oh, that's not how I intended at all. It's like, hey, the gift, the high expression of these is always available to us. So, but these things can be confronting, right? When we maybe see something of ourselves in the shadow, and like, oh God, I don't want to be that. I'm like, well, we don't have to be that. We just need to be aware of that. And awareness is usually, 9/10 of the battle. And then we catch ourselves, right? We catch ourselves and we come back and we're like, I want to live in the high expression of everything that happens in my chart, right? As you said, I'm a Sun in Gate 36. Okay. Victim mentality, hot mess express. I'm aware of that for myself, right? But I choose not to live in that space. And anytime I try to veer into that territory now, I try to make sure that I make better choices, see things in a different light. That's the whole point of all of this, in my opinion. Okay. And that's where the beauty comes from, accessing that beautiful high vibrational side. All right. Getting back on track off the tangent, of course. So let's get back over there. All right. So we are in Capricorn. We're moving into gate 54, which is located in the root center, and it is part of tribal ego circuitry. Okay. So tribal energy is squad goals, the hippie commune, the girl gang. It's community over competition. It's about security for your group. And the keynote for tribal energy is support. And in the case of the ego, it's definitely about business, money, making money and providing for yourself and your people. So, starting with the center itself, the root is both a motor and a pressure center. It pushes us to do and provides the necessary adrenaline to carry out the action. Energy enters the root, that moves around the body graph to the awareness centers. And in this case, it moves up to the spleen. That's where it's aiming for, which is our health and survival awareness. So 54 is known as the marrying maiden. It's the gate of drive, and it is the pressure to achieve, to rise up, to transform. This energy is all about ambition, achievement, and ascending the mountain of success on the material plane. Now, the low expression of 54, well, it's called the marrying maiden. So I ain't saying she's a gold digger, but like this in its low expression, it could be a social climber looking for status. It's if you get this reference, I'm like, I love you. It's a material girl or boy. 54 can show up as greed, especially if the desire to acquire is for the self alone. Remember, this is tribal. It's for you and your people, your crew, your inner circle, whoever that may be. And for example, I know somebody who has their son in gate 54. They are 1,000,000% this person. You can see, I'm aware of it. So I see the hunger in their eyes, and there's somebody that's going to do whatever it takes. So driven to attain that fame, status. They got to be somebody. It's pretty wild. You know, this energy can be egocentric and soullessly materialistic. It can be ruthless. And I've seen this person buying Instagram followers, which, side note, when we get to the gene keys, like Richard Rudd talks about the shadow of this one needing to appear successful to other people. And, in this case, this person I'm referencing, right, it's like they play it off really nice. Most people would probably miss it, but it's like, it's very clear. Like I can see it very well, that they're out for number one. It's like, it's not about the group, it's about themselves. And it makes me think of that whole, 1980s greed is good thing, right? Because again, in the gene keys, the shadow of this is flat out it's greed. Um, if you've ever seen Wall Street, Gordon Gekko, 1980s, just so classic, right? And he has this little speech. I went and looked it up because I was like, what all does he say in that? He said, the point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit. Greed in all of its forms, greed for life, for money, for love, knowledge, has marked the upward surge of mankind. And then hilariously, I'm looking at just greed quotes, and Albert Einstein says, three great forces rule the world: stupidity, fear, and greed. There you go. So the huge difference, right, between the high and the low expression is like being greedy and money hungry and that, like I said, that material, like that need to acquire, versus understanding money and wealth. It's an energy, right? And it's not just for the self. So the high expression is aspiring for more with the tribe in mind, with your people in mind. This energy needs to be seen and recognized by others higher up the ladder. Then it receives the seal of approval and is promoted to that next level of success, bringing everyone up with it. It also speaks to satisfying the tribe's material needs: food, water, shelter, so that everyone can transcend. Then the spirituality can be focused on. So I always think with this one, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If you don't have food, shelter, water, like those basics, how the heck are you supposed to transcend and think about, spiritual fulfillment, right? These huge concepts is like you can't. You just have to be able to survive first and foremost. So 54 is an evolutionary pressure. So it's interesting just to pause there and go back to that, the Wall Street quote of him talking about its evolution. I'm like, yeah, I love it designed just how it shows up in this way. And it really speaks to all of these things. You just see it talked about, and it's all woven into the fabric of our lives, really. So like I said, it's an evolutionary pressure to do better, to provide better than you had, like for your children, right? Or tribe, giving your kids more and better than what you had, making their life more comfortable. So coming off Christmas and watching Home Alone countless times, it's like, the dad, Peter McAllister, saying as they're on the plane flying to Paris, where the mom's like, oh, don't you feel bad about the kids back in coach and we're up in first class? And he's like, the only flying that I ever did as a kid was in the family station wagon. It wasn't to France, right? So you're doing more and better for your kids, like even if they're going to be in coach. Hey, they're still going to Paris for Christmas, even if it's only for like a day or two. When it's healthy, there is a good balance between the material and the spiritual, like spirit having a human experience. And I think that's really important with this one, again, to realize when it reaches sort of like its point, it transcends that material aspect of it. But at the same time, we live in a 3D reality where money is a thing at this point. You need it to survive, whether we like it or not. Somebody like me, I'm like, oh, but it's just a fact of life at this point in time. So how do we work with that in a healthy way? Um, yeah, I don't know. Honestly, this is definitely one that I know various people with this gate, and it's in very prominent places in their chart. Sun placement, it's in the incarnation cross. It's, there's different gates that it's like very important, right? And they're just so driven by money. I've told this story before, but there's somebody who in my life, I'm very fond of this person, right? So this is not a dig, but I once saw them literally fan themselves with a wad of $100 bills and say that how they love the smell of money. This was in a professional medical setting. Okay. This is just one of, many stories and things that I've witnessed. I'm like, wow, it's so interesting how all of that shows up. Now, somebody that I want to point out who has this in a very prominent place in their chart, who I think uses it really beautifully, is my friend Jessica Rom, solo esthetician love. She once said to me that her love language is helping people she loves make money. Right. And so that kind of goes back to what I was saying about, okay, money is just a fact of life at this point. So how am I going to help people make their lives more comfortable? and provide for their families, right? She's definitely been somebody that's talked plenty about that, and monetizing your purpose, helping people monetize their purpose so that they can live a life that they love. I think that's so beautiful. And again, back to that person that I said was fanning themselves with the $100 bills. They're also one of the most generous people that I know, and loyal, and takes care of their people, just so much so. So you know what I mean? It's like, let's use this. The high expression is always available to us. Just to, again, to point that out, if you hear 54 and you're like, whoa, right? Know that there's two sides to every coin. But again, it's like, I don't have this in my chart. So like, this to me is just like a different language, is just like one that I don't speak. Because I'm always like, no, let's not dwell on the material. Let's get to the spiritual. And just, the fact of the matter is, money can't buy you love and happiness and fulfillment, right? It can help you live a very comfortable life, for sure, for sure. But if you don't have the people around you, to do that with, doesn't make sense. And if you don't feel fulfilled, what's the point? You know? So in the gene keys, the shadow of this one is greed, the gift is aspiration, and the city is ascension. So I thought it was interesting, I was like, okay, let's look up the dictionary definition of greed. And in Oxford Dictionary, it was in the intense and selfish desire for something, especially wealth, power, or food. And the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, it was a selfish and excessive desire for more of something, such as money, than is needed. And it said motivated by naked ambition and greed. But looking at the definition for aspiration, it's a strong desire to achieve something high or great. And ascension is rising or increasing to higher levels, values, or degrees. Even ascension, like of a mountain slope. And I was like, so funny. This is Capricorn. Okay. So, kind of to paraphrase with the gene keys, it's like he talks about greed being this driving force for humanity, but it does serve an evolutionary purpose, of course. We've kind of been touching on that. It's helped to advance civilization, but originally that was based upon, again, survival, right? Not trying to accumulate everything more than you need, right? That greed aspect is like more than what we need for yourself or your group at the cost and detriment to all others. And he talks about, it's like it wants to be at the top of the hierarchy. It wants to be seen, needs to be seen, needs the luxury, the status, all of that. And it winds up being a destructive force. Richard Rudd talks about greed not having integrity, and it will compromise itself out of desperation to get what it wants. So he mentions that greed is material and being aspirational is more spiritual. So direct quote, he says, genuine ambition has a built-in genetic urge to keep transcending. This is why the affluence of the Western world is beginning to naturally transform into a more spiritual aspiration. So, right, the idea is that we transcend the material and move on to the spiritual, right? So, kind of going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if our basics are being met, right, you can move up the ladder, you can move up that pyramid to hopefully the top, to self-actualization eventually. So the idea is like, yeah, once you have plenty in the bank, you've got the food, the shelter, all that, you're safe, you're secure. Now you can focus on the spiritual aspect. But he definitely calls out the purchasing of spirituality in the Western world. And I mean, we see that all the time. When Instagram was a great place for this. It's like, oh, I've got my mala beads and my Lululemon leggings, and my over harvested white sage, or unethically mined crystals, or whatever it is. Just people really kind of trying to appear, right? There's that key. Like, I want to appear that I have this status. I want to appear spiritual. It's the whole thing. Anyway, he goes on to say aspiration contains within it the seeds of all higher consciousness. At the gift level, aspiration has to do with working with others for the benefit of others. The gift concerns the way in which energy is invested. At the shadow level, any accumulated energy went back into the drive to accumulate more with no other real purpose. At this higher level of frequency, accumulated energy is recycled and used to support people lower down in the hierarchy. That's so beautiful, right? And again, he goes on to talk about the higher frequency business, in the current age, that's a possibility where business used to be just so like cutthroat, and now we can do business in a way that's healthy for the planet. We can choose just better things. What are we packaging stuff with? Is it recyclable? Does it need so much to begin with? um taking profits and reinvesting money where it is actually needed, and having the right energy and intention behind the why you even have a business and are trying to make money. Okay, so my notes here. This is part of a projected channel, so projector rules apply. Of course, being seen, recognized, and invited. This energy, and specifically this full channel, is completely dependent on being seen for their work, seen for being a hard worker. There's some conditioning for you because this is a projected energy, right? Well, you have to work hard. And that being just the accepted rhetoric, in our society. So that kind of leads into this channel is definitely the workaholic of the body graph. And it's so interesting that it is a projected energy, right? Because projectors really need to be mindful about not overworking, especially when it's coming from this highly conditioned place, burning themselves out specifically with this. This channel as a projector would make you what's known as an energy projector. And so you can wind up with adrenal fatigue. Like you have the root energy, right? The root is a motor and it's connected to the spleen. So it's coming up, it's technically producing energy, but very easy to burn out this way, especially when you feel like you have to be the one carrying everything and working so hard to make it all happen. And if they're not getting recognized, right? If somebody's not getting recognized with this energy and they aren't making enough money, they are going to be salty AF. This is part of ego circuitry, but it's not directly connected to the ego, right? The root and the spleen don't. This is not a direct connection. This entire channel, so it doesn't know when to stop. It doesn't know when to rest. And the ego, this being part of ego circuitry, it's all about working to rest. They will grind harder, longer, more, just like crazy than anybody else, just grinding. Seriously, this channel is definitely one to watch very carefully for burnout. So again, if you have this, it's like, are you working yourself to the bone? Okay. And then another side note, so like it's so funny because I'm like, well, my manifestor son has this entire channel. And he is so like making sure everybody is provided for. It is the sweetest thing. Like literally, he's just having his math tutoring, and she's a college professor, and but she's like retired, and she'll bring her Tic Tacs and different things, and then um, she has made comment to me, like uh sometimes they'll get like Pokemon cards or different things, as a reward for like doing the work and paying attention to everything. She's like, he's just so sweet because he knows his big sister likes it too. So if he gets them, he will ask, can he have one for his sister? And he does this like every time. And so I'm like, what a beautiful, I love, again, I think I was talking about my daughter last time where it's like with my son, and thinking to encourage this. It's like he's doing this for his tribe. He makes sure genuinely, like this child makes sure that everybody is taken care of. Whenever he has something, he wants to make sure all of us have something equally. It's so sweet. But then another family member, so my uncle, who has passed away when I was like 9, but he was one of my favorite people, and his son was in gate 54, and he was definitely that person who always had to have the newest, the best. We're talking like back in the 80s, when before everybody had CD players, and he had that, and then it was like, whatever, especially when it came to like all the electronics and stuff, or like automobile, like whatever was status, right? And he always had to have the latest and the greatest. But at the same time, he definitely was a person who, like my sister and I, he was always giving us all the best things too. So um it's a like I said, it's a funny one. It's a very funny one. But he had this sign and I will never forget it. And it was, he who dies with the most toys wins. And I'm like, if that is not the epitome of this energy, maybe not slow expression. I don't know what is. It just such a funny one to like think back and be like, wow. Um, like I said, somebody with their sun, their biggest energy in their chart in this particular gate. It's fascinating. And then last kind of little note on this, it's also a tribal energy, so it is highly tactile. So again, about being close, physically, even with people and being able to touch, taste, smell, all of that. Okay, so the programming partner with this one, meaning if the sun is in Capricorn in 54, the earth is automatically opposite in Cancer, gate 53. And 53 is known as development, it's the gate of beginnings. And the keynote here is the pressure to begin, the pressure to start new things. So again, root timing, root pulse here. This is about having the fuel or adrenaline from the root pushing up, making you want to start something new. And 53 is all about the start, not the finish. I always say this is get it off the ground energy. You're not required to take it across the finish line. In fact, unless you have the full channel, it's not really your responsibility. You will attract, your energy will attract others who are able to take it over the line, kind of pass the baton off to them and bring things to completion. So I would say that with this one, the low expression, it's like if you're unaware of it, it can make you feel inadequate because you start things you never finish, or other people can make you feel that way. Again, conditioning. You may enter into cycles incorrectly, like not following your strategy and authority, and then can get stuck in a sort of Groundhog's Day situation, repeating the same patterns and stories over and over again. But the high expression of 53 is all about following your strategy and authority for your type. This ensures that you enter into cycles that are correct for you, you know? So always, 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 like that is the rule, follow your strategy and authority. This gate is definitely where intention is everything, letting go of expectation. It's just like, hey, you reap what you sow. What's the intention behind what you're doing? Get off on the right foot. The way you start something is the way you finish it. So definitely starting a positive intention at the beginning of each day, for every cycle of life, the big ones and the small ones. So I think of 53 as it's very much the springboard lift off energy. And the gate that completes the channel is Libra gate 32, forming the channel of transformation. 32 is known as duration. It's the gate of continuity. The keynote with this one is the fear of failure, awareness of what can be transformed or not, and that fear of failure holds you back from doing what you want to do. And I always affectionately call 32 the talent scout. The low expression of it is the fear of failure, right? Has just big hopes, big dreams, afraid to pursue them. It questions, how do I keep things going along safely and successfully? It's looking for the gifted, talented allies, but it's worried that others won't measure up. Fearful of the lack of material resources for the self and for the tribe. It is conservative, it's careful, it wants things to be steady and secure. But meanwhile, we all know that change is the only constant, so there's that fear and anxiety. It knows there's always potential for failure. But of course, evolution is how things improve. These people just have to be open to it. It's like change is going to come. Got to be open. You got to be flexible. Keep going one foot in front of the other. The high expression, this gate really sees and susses out what is valuable, what's worth the time, the effort, and what is not. Like I said, it's a talent scout for the tribe. It's got the gift of recognizing what or who in your group has the necessary gifts, the skills, the education to be successful at something. And then using its natural sway, it makes sure that those people are seen and appreciated for their abilities by people higher up the food chain, which will eventually propel the entire group forward, the entire tribe. It's always evaluating what is and is not working, and it's always striving to improve. So this one is really about endurance, keeping your eye on the prize, holding the vision, and adapting as necessary, refining as you go. So I'm like, hey, you have this one. I have 32. It's my Pluto. It's like you've got that intuitive sense, like, flex that because there's something in you that knows what will and won't be successful. Then you just have to modify and act accordingly. So 32, right, is the intuitive instincts from the spleen, that little talent scout living up there, fueled up by the powerful adrenal pressure and drive to rise up from the root center. So 54 is like the gas, 32 is the brake. 54 is that blind power and drive, and 32 is like, hey, we need to focus that on the things that we are intuitively knowing will or won't work for all of us, right? It's going to direct it correctly. So when the two come together to form the channel of transformation, it's about being recognized for your intense drive, ambition, willingness to go the distance and keep grinding, and also seeing the value in others. This channel needs allies. It needs a crew to support and receive support from in return. They need the right people around them. This is the classic, there is no I in team. It's an energy that wants to climb the ladder of success, specifically material and financial success, and hopefully bring their entire tribe up with them. It definitely can carry a fear that the tribe doesn't have the goods to deliver on, though, right? The goal with this is to be recognized and have your time increase in value. So, like a coach, once upon a time, maybe they charged $50 an hour and now they can charge 500. Basically all that so that, if my time goes up in value, then they can finally acquire and stockpile enough finances to rest. Otherwise, it's going to be very bitter and very salty. Uh, Naturally, people with this channel are going to have to work hard in life, but they have to be careful about what kind of work they're willing to do to earn their fortune and who's inviting them to do it. Again, a friendly reminder, this channel is the workaholic of the chart. These people, they can be caught in a cycle of trying to prove their value by working and grinding the hardest versus recognizing their own value within themselves. Considering it's projected, it really needs to manage that work rest cycle and making sure that it's recognizing the self first and foremost. Physical medicine is good for these people to work out the potential fear and anxiety that can live within this energy. At the end of the day, it's always about aspiring for more with the tribe in mind. It's an evolutionary pressure to be able to provide more for your offspring, give your kids a better life than the one that you got. Each generation is trying to do this for the next. So this channel is trying to do more for its people and needs to be seen and recognized by others to receive that seal of approval, to be promoted to the next level of success, bringing everyone up with them. It also speaks to, again, satisfying those material needs so that everybody can transcend and move on and, you know, move to that spiritually fulfilling place. If you don't have that, how are we supposed to expect more of you? Right. And really, again, that kind of comes back to, hey, if you have your basic needs met, you're going to do better in school. And that's going to get you're going to do better in life overall. So if, say, the grandparents didn't have that and they worked harder to provide that for like mom and dad, and mom and dad are doing better for their kids and so on and so forth. It's like, that's a really beautiful thing, that hopefully we get to the point where everybody's basic needs are met and then we can really focus on just bigger and more important things and literally just trying to simply survive, right? Astrologically, this is a square between Capricorn and Libra, so tension for the sake of growth. And it's happening in the fourth quarter of the wheel, purpose fulfilled through transformation. This is the channel of transformation. And interestingly, the Libra gate, the other half of this, the 32 that I have, is in the quarter of relationships, where this is about taking advantage of the people and the relationships that you have, using them to transform and rise up. Always, always, always with the highest good of the group in mind. Okay, so do you have this gate in your chart? We're looking at the root, bottom left-hand side. It's going to be aiming up toward the spleen. If 54 is colored in black, red, or red and black, you have it defined somewhere in your chart. If it's white, you don't have it. It looks like mine, but look over to the other side. Maybe the 32 is colored in. So for me, right, in this case, I will have the full channel defined for approximately 6 days. And maybe you don't have any part of it at all. Totally cool too. Who in your life has it? Like I said, I can look at my son. I have various people with 54 or that channel in my life. And I see ways that it's being done not so hot and ways that it is done really beautifully and gracefully. Right. So it's always interesting. And, you can encourage, especially like I said, with my son, where it's like, hey, I'm always going to encourage you to do the high expression of this because that is a really lovely thing that he naturally has within him. And, you know, I want to make sure that it never veers into that greedy territory. He just has a heart of gold. He's so wonderful. Um, Anywho, gives you a bit more understanding perspective of people in general. Right. Okay. So make sure again that you're following me over on Instagram at Michaela McLean to get all the extras each week on how to utilize the benefits of this energy as it's impacting all of us through the transits. And of course, I'll be back soon with more. I would, of course, love it if you would leave the show a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or hit the 5 stars wherever you listen. It really does help to get this out to more people. And I always say it's a labor of love for me. I share all this with you, and it's just, I would deeply appreciate it. So I will be back soon with more. Of course, until next time, have a beautiful day.